Hello, I am Jay, and if it's the first time or the next time, thank you for stopping in. And I'm just sitting here adulting, and I wanted to take a minute to talk to you guys about what it is like to live with IBS-D. Now, if you don't already know, IBS is irritable bowel syndrome, and it is a condition or a disorder that affects the large intestines. Really what that means is, for a lot of us, is that we can't digest gluten, which is barley, wheat, rye. We also can't, a lot of us can't also ingest dairy. Now there are some of us that can eat certain foods and some of us that can't eat those certain foods. So it differs based on the person. Me in particular, I have IBS-D, and the D stands for, you guessed it, diarrhea. There are some that suffer from IBS-C, which means constipation. Woo, we're getting into it. What happens for us is, or me specifically, is that I end up with bloating, diarrhea, gas, pain, and general discomfort. Having IBS is not a fad, not for me. It isn't a choice. It isn't a diet necessarily. It is a way that I have to live. When I go to a restaurant, I don't enjoy spending $2 extra for a hamburger bun that pretty much tastes like stale, rehydrated styrofoam. I mean, you may enjoy it. Some may enjoy it. I don't. Those are just one of the things that we have to deal with. It's not something that's going to make you healthier, the diet change. So those who are switching to gluten-free for a fad, you're not going to gain anything from it unless you deal with inflammation and some of the symptoms that we have to deal with. You're going to pay more money, so that's not fun. And it doesn't, not everything tastes the same. It doesn't taste great. So it isn't, for me, it isn't fun, basically. I sort of feel left out because we sort of build relationships around food. So especially with Thanksgiving coming up, there are foods that I just can't eat. And my family is oftentimes really understanding. You know, I can't eat the stuffing. I can't have the traditional macaroni and cheese. And there are a lot of foods that they prepare that, because they include flour as a thickening agent, or some other type of dairy product, milk or cheese, and I just can't eat it or I risk getting sick. So they are very understanding. And I have some friends who are very understanding. So when we go out, they sort of check the menu beforehand, and they'll go, yeah, you can eat here. And it's really cool, but at the same time, it's also very frustrating because when I go out to eat, and I love to eat, not a lot of things are geared towards people like me, and that's completely understandable, and I don't expect them to have things geared towards me, but it does make me more comfortable when I do go out to eat. So there are certain restaurants, Five Guys, they'll wrap the hamburger in lettuce instead of giving me a bun, or they'll just put it in a container and they call that a bowl. But their fries are also fried in peanut oil, and that's the only thing that's fried there. So there's no risk of cross-contamination, which is nice. And the safest place for me to eat, of course, is at home because I can monitor what ingredients I use. Now, I still get sick from cross-contamination from time to time, so I have to be very careful when I purchase things from the grocery store. Oftentimes, it has to come with the GF symbol, which means gluten-free certified. So what are my symptoms? Because I have IBS-D, of course I have diarrhea, but I also have bloating, abdominal pain, gas. When it's severe, I'll have a drop in blood pressure, color vision will go, and my hearing will drop. And sometimes the last time that I had ringing in my ear. The last severe attack that I had, it was because I still wasn't quite sure of my trigger foods. And if you have IBS, sometimes it's not just dairy and or gluten, it's also tomatoes, it's also garlic. So there are special diets that we need to be on in order to reduce that. But I ate meatloaf, and my meatloaf has tomato paste on it. And even though I can eat spaghetti and not have a reaction, it's the concentrated tomato paste that was making me sick. And I ended up on my bathroom floor, sweating, panting, just, hearing dropped, just feeling like I was just gonna die. And I knew I wasn't gonna die, but that doesn't stop you from feeling like you're gonna die. And I can honestly say that having experienced things like that, because I'm dumb, I'm just gonna be honest. I love food, so I will still eat food that has some dairy in it or has some gluten in it, but I will only eat it maybe once a week. Like tonight, I had gluten-free macaroni and gluten-free and cheese-free, dairy-free macaroni and cheese. Is it the same? No, but I won't end up in the bathroom later on. I make sure that my stuff has the GF symbol on it. And on those rare occasions, I do take my medicine. I do take these faithfully to minimize my reactions. So how did I know I had IBS? Well, it took a really, really long time. When I was a baby, I was lactose intolerant. So my body couldn't digest milk very well. And then when I grew a little bit older, I can digest milk fine, but around the age of 17, I started noticing after lunch, because I would always have milk, I started noticing I would be in the bathroom about an hour after lunch. And then I said, okay, well, let me eliminate, I've always been a scientist, let me eliminate certain things from my diet that might be making me sick. And the only thing that was consistent was the milk. So I took it out, and lo and behold, I didn't have diarrhea. Now, then it progressed to where, okay, I can't have milk, but then certain cheeses, Kraft cheese, hands down, could not have it. It was just making me sick. And then it progressed to ice cream, certain types of ice cream. And then it would be certain types of pizza. And then around my mid-20s, while I was at work, I had 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And my reaction to that was so severe that I lost color vision and some sound. And I had such severe diarrhea that I actually ended up with hemorrhoids. So yeah, it was hella bad. But I didn't recall drinking any milk. I didn't have any milk, but it was the Wonder Bread. So Wonder Bread is not allowed in my house, just to put that out there. So I cut out Wonder Bread, can no longer come into my house. As I got older, I started noticing that there were other things that were making me sick, and I couldn't understand. I couldn't pinpoint what it was. So the doctors were saying, well, if you just eliminate certain foods, you'll figure out what it is that's triggering you. Great. I went to a gastroenterologist, the first one, and they said, well, if you think it's gluten, no test. If you think it's gluten, just take it out of your diet. But for sure that I had a sensitivity to dairy. So they told me to treat my dairy sensitivity as if it were an allergy. So that meant 0 dairy. They also did a scope and discovered that I had gastritis and acid reflux disease. So the flap for my esophagus, I think that's where it's at. It's somewhere up in there. Okay, don't mark me on this. It was completely open. So okay, I didn't have gluten sensitivity, but I eliminated all gluten from my diet anyway. And then when I slowly started to incorporate certain things, I was like, okay, well, this isn't it, this isn't it. And I made myself, I remember I made, because I do enjoy baking, I made cinnamon rolls. And I only used bread flour, wheat flour, and regular flour, no dairy whatsoever. And within 20 minutes, I was sick. So, haha, it was definitely flour or gluten. Then having to deal with that, having to be cautious of flour, I got a little bit older, and then all of a sudden, here was everything that I was eating was making me sick. Every time I turned around, I would eat a salad, I was getting sick. I would eat just a regular meal out, and I would come home and I would be sick. And I wasn't quite sure what it was. I was losing weight, and then I saw my second gastroenterologist. And she went down the list and she said, well, tell me what's going on. And I was just like, well, I don't know what's going on. Just every time I eat something, I'm getting sick. And, you know, I told her I was going through a lot of stress, and I already knew that I was lactose intolerant, or I knew that I had a sensitivity to gluten. And then she went, I believe you have IBS. Because one of the things that happens is that when you are stressed, it makes your IBS worse. So there are times when I could eat something and not get sick. For example, the pizza. I just thought it was the different types of cheese that I was okay with, when really it was just the different times that I ate it. So then they gave me another test to do, an actual test, and that came that I had some sort of bacteria in my gut, which they gave me medicine for, and that took care of that. But then dealing with the IBS, I was told to take a certain medication, and Donatol was one of those medications. Now, Donatol was really helpful, but it was expensive when you're considering that you have to take it every time that you eat something that could be cross-contaminated, or if you wanted to engage in food that had dairy and gluten in it. So over-the-counter medications that I was able to find, of course, she suggested peppermint oil. And Nature's Way is a really good one. Heather's Tummy Tamers is also pretty good. And these two, they are around $10. Around $10. But the one that I saw but I have to take a lot of these in order to not get a reaction. A lot of these. So there will be at any given time when I know I'm going to mess up. I know, like, oh, I'm going to eat lasagna. I have to take 8 or 9 pills. It really doesn't matter which one of these. Now this one is more pricey. This one is $25 a bottle. And this one, I can take just 2, and it minimizes my reaction. Now, it may not eliminate my reaction, but it will minimize, and that's the key. That's the ticket. That's it. Still a prank. Wine doesn't really matter, red, white. Although I do have to be careful of cross-contamination, considering how it was stored. Sometimes the corks or the barrels. I can still have vodka. I can still have gin. I can still have whiskey, even though I'm not a whiskey person. Beer. There are certain beers that are naturally gluten-free, like hard apple cider. And then there are some beers that have very low gluten. So many parts per million are supposedly safe, but I guess it depends on the person. I usually try to steer clear of those. And then sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, I will have tequila because, you know, I'm a tequila type of girl, but I am very cautious of the alcohol that I take in. So what do I eat if I can't have dairy or gluten? You'd be surprised. I have a whole cabinet. Want to see it? What? Look at that. Okay, this one sort of kind of sucks. I have yet to try this one. Look at that. Ooh, just got this stuff today. Yeah. Haven't tried that yet. Love this stuff. Let's see what else we have. Haven't tried that yet. Love this stuff. It's great. It's great. It's great. This is Topeka flour. I add some of this in when I'm usually when I'm frying something. I really don't use this to bake anything, but I add that to like almond flour, some other stuff, or I'll add a little bit of that to this. And there's some more stuff that I haven't tried yet because I don't really have a sweet tooth, but I keep buying stuff just in case. Now this I use a lot of because I do make lasagna. And you want to ask me about the cheese, I'm going to tell you right now, I do use regular cheese with my lasagna. And I do pay the price unless I take medication. So in the morning, what do I do when I want some grits? Yellow corn grits. Why? Because, do they have the seal? Can I get to the seal? Can I get to the seal? I can't get to the seal. It's already wrapped up and I'm just using one hand. But these are usually GF certified. And I have to have the GF certified or else I will get sick from cross-contamination. Now this stuff is Krusteaz gluten-free cornbread. This still has dairy in it. So this is something I still have to be cautious of. But when I want some cornbread, which I haven't had yet, this is something I'm going to try. And again, I don't have a sweet tooth. But in case I want some actual cake, and I have had this type of cake before, and when you add the special mayonnaise to it, because mayonnaise does add moistness to cake, it makes it awesome, which is always nice. There's some other stuff that I haven't tried yet. Panko breadcrumbs. Can't wait to start cooking that for you guys. And last in this cabinet, gluten-free blueberry muffins. So there's plenty of stuff for us GF people to have, which was different from when I first got diagnosed dealing with gluten. I do have another cabinet up here that is my cashews. I believe these are cashews. Hold on. Yeah. My raw cashews. And that is for making imitation cheese. Some more gluten-free cake. Why, you ask? I don't know. Some gluten-free brownies, which I've had before. Not too bad. And those are some crackers that have been up in my cabinet for forever because they are nasty. And then these are more Topeka flour. Topeka flour, finally grounded. Because you can never have enough Topeka flour. Boom. I can say it is a must to have your own cabinet of dedicated food. It makes it easier to find things. I don't have to search my other cabinets because I'm the only one that has this type of sensitivity in the house. So it's just easier. And I do have other things. If I go into my other cabinet, barbecue sauce. This is great. This is awesome stuff. And my stuff has to say gluten-free or else I have to take medication in fear of cross-contamination because I will have a reaction. And let's see what else. Look at that. I'm not showing you my other cabinet because, you know what, it's a disaster over there. But Prego Garden Chunky, because you got to have those vegetables. And if you look in the back, we're in the back. Gluten-free. Absolutely has to say gluten-free. Now I do ingest tomato paste, but I have had reactions with tomato paste. Don't really know why. Now being gluten-free isn't cheap. It has gotten cheaper because there are more people who are dealing with the condition, and even those who are just buying into the hype. They're putting enough hype into the market to where it's sort of driving up interest and then driving down price. So I went to the store today just as a refresher. I already know how much this stuff costs. And, you know, discovered pretty well that the price isn't as high as it used to be. Years ago, gluten-free, dairy-free cheese. Dairy-free is still pretty expensive. I will say that. There's a lot of stuff that's out on the market that's pretty pricey. And I sort of feel bad for people who live in smaller cities and towns because they don't have access to all of these foods. I live in a pretty heavy populated area, and I shop at Kroger. So in that Kroger, that's why I love it so much, is that they have an entire section of the store that's dedicated to natural eating, to gluten-free and dairy-free and vegetarian and vegan options. And I don't know if every single Kroger's has it, but the ones that are in my area do. And it just makes shopping for food and building a meal plan a lot easier. Well, I hope that this video was at least somewhat informative of what it's like to have IBS. And if you're dealing with it yourself, you're not alone. Hopefully, I'll be showing you some recipes that you can use, some tricks that I figured out on how to make gluten-free foods taste better. If you are a friend or a loved one of someone who has IBS, I hope this has encouraged you to be as supportive as possible to that person. And if there are any questions that you may have, please leave them in the comment section. And until the next video, keep adulting.